Tucker Carlson has incessantly aired segments specifically attacking migrants, the migrant caravan, undocumented immigrants here in the United States. And it appears that last week he might have gone a little too far, because after one of his segments involving immigration, a number of his advertisers decided to pull out of his show. Now, I'm gonna give you the first clip, which features the offensive things he said, and then later he doubles down. Take a look.
People debate all the time about mass immigration. What you never hear anybody do is make the economic case for mass immigration. But as an economic matter, this is insane. It's indefensible, so nobody even tries to defend it. Instead, our leaders demand that you shut up and accept this. We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
So he used the word poorer, dirtier, and more divided. It's funny because it's people like him who actually divide the country through his rhetoric, right?
And by the way, also make the country poorer by insisting on tax cuts for the rich and corporations that actually rob us of our of not only our revenue for the government and create a giant deficit, but then turn around and rob Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid to pay for it. So, and divided, I mean, Tucker, that's what you do every single night, is divide the country. That's your job. And then you turn around and you blame immigrants for it. But dirtier. It's in a teleprompter. It wasn't off the cuff. We're unscripted and we get passionate sometimes. He wrote that down and then read it. Dirtier.
So he got criticized for that quite a bit, but he actually decided to double down in a later episode of his show.
Those who won't shut up get silenced. You've seen it a million times. It happens all the time. The enforcers scream racist on Twitter until everybody gets intimidated and changes the subject to the Russia investigation or some other distraction. It's a tactic, a well-worn one. Nobody thinks it's real, and it won't work with this show. We're not intimidated. We plan to try to say what's true until the last day. And the truth is, unregulated mass immigration has badly hurt this country's natural landscape. Take a trip to our southwestern deserts if you don't believe it. Thanks to illegal immigration, huge swaths of the region are covered with garbage and waste that degrade the soil and kill wildlife.
You want to talk about destroying the national landscape? While we have record fires, record hurricanes, extreme weather conditions that have been very directly caused by our inability to accept that climate change is happening and we need to do something about it, he's gonna sit there and talk about how important the national landscape is to him. You don't care about the national landscape. He never did, he never will. He's using this as a way of slandering migrants. And by the way, you wanna talk about a country that has a migration issue or immigration issue? Look, in Europe, European countries have been taking in, I don't even know how many refugees because of wars that we've been involved in the Middle East, right? Okay, they do have an issue with immigration. I don't know what the solution is to it. We do not take in the numbers of refugees that those countries do, right? We do not have an immigration issue. This is a made up problem that Donald Trump used and exploited for his stupid political campaign, and Fox News just keeps regurgitating it. He's sitting there talking about the national landscape as if he gives a damn about the national landscape. Trump just sold off our national parks and our public lands for drilling, and he wants to talk about the national landscape?
That's exactly what I was gonna go to. You're selling off the landscape so that your buddies can drill and make a profit off of it. You are in favor of mountaintop removals, which destroys our landscape, destroys our mountains. And Paula Jean Swearengin, who is a progressive who ran against Joe Manchin in the primaries, made a great point about it. She said, if somebody bombed our mountains like this, we'd go to war over it. You're talking about somebody didn't pick up the trash. And why did he do that? Why did he show those pictures? To cover his tracks, because he called people dirty and he knows what he did. So then he's like, I don't know, I got to cover for it somehow. Oh, look, somebody left some stuff behind. And I care about the landscape, as my buddy's selling off all the landscape in the country to dirty fossil fuel and uranium miners, etc.
So, and he's very worried about the wildlife as well.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. That's why whenever they want to do drilling and we say wildlife, they're like, oh, the wildlife. They care about the caribou. Drill, baby, drill. Right? What happened to that? And then, by the way, you want to care about the landscape? How about the oil spill in the Gulf? that destroyed the landscape there. There, you laughed and said, oh yeah, my oil buddies are making a lot of money because those guys are rich and they're your buddies. But those poor immigrants, they're the tired, the wretched, the masses, the poor, the huddled, right? So you don't want those. I mean, Statue of Liberty told us to reject those people, right? And so we know exactly where Tucker Carlson is going with this. And in another segment, and I don't think it got enough hype, and Laura Ingraham did the same thing. Both of them said at different times, the immigrants will not replace us. Jesus Christ, that's the direct Nazi language that they used in Charlottesville. The Jews will not replace us. I always found that curious. What do you mean replace us? They're not. We're still here. If the immigrants come in and I have a Jewish neighbor, how do they replace me? It doesn't make sense. That's because I don't understand it because it's neo-Nazi terminology. I don't know why I'm softening it. It's Nazi terminology, literally borrowed from the Nazis. They just took out the word Jews and put in the word immigrants. And then they go, I can't believe you're offended. Just because I'd use a Nazi slogan, you're somehow all of a sudden offended.
Okay, so.
But by the way, the twist is, I still don't agree with the protest, so we might debate that.
Okay, before we get to the protest though, I know this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but I gotta mention it. Look, this is the reason why I wasn't buying his very moderate answers during his Politicon debate with you. He was trying to save face. He's in a room full of a bunch of people. He doesn't want to get booed. He doesn't want to deal with the face-to-face consequences of being the type of person that he really is. He is not a reasonable person. This is what he really believes. When he's in his comfortable studio behind the set, he says what he wants and he doesn't have to worry about having to deal with anyone arguing against him. But when he's in front of other people, all of a sudden, yeah, Cenk, you make a great point. You make a great point. Yeah, no, I don't think that. I actually love immigration. You don't love immigration at all. You've made that clear.
Look, I don't know what's in his heart. I always find that phrase to be ridiculous. But I do believe him that he is worried about too much corporate power. But that's a totally different issue. Okay, fine, then why don't you rail against that every night? Oh, that doesn't play as well. He does sometimes, but not that often on Fox News. But you know what plays well with his really racist audience? Ooh, the dirty, dirty brown people. They're not gonna replace us, are they? We're not gonna let them replace us. That's the game you're playing, Tucker. And you can try to talk around it all day long, but everybody sees it clear as day, and you know it too, and you make a huge buck off of it. Now, in terms of the sponsors pulling out, look, these progressives that are doing this are good, wonderful people, and they've had amazing effect, and they got Glenn Beck off the air, and to some degree Bill O'Reilly off of Fox News. But I think as odious as Tucker Carlson's comments are, he gets to make them and we get to make the counter argument. It's not a First Amendment issue. These advertisers have every right to put their ads anywhere they like. They're not the government, okay? But as a general principle, I believe in freedom of speech, and I believe that in the marketplace of ideas, and you could say, hey, that's hokey, Cenk, and it's not right, and it's, one is on a cable news station powered by billions of dollars that Rupert Murdoch put in, and you guys are online, and it's a totally different animal. We'll take them on anyway, and we will beat them anyway, and we're beating them today. So I think they should let us battle it out, but now the sponsors are pulling out. I don't know what you think, Anna.
So I don't have as strong of an opinion on it as you do. I lean more toward being supportive of this effort by progressives to get advertisers to pull out, but I also understand the consequences of that. So look, advertisers are a finicky bunch. They're very scared of anything controversial, and so I think that this could be used in the wrong context in the future. So look, there are people who find anything and everything offensive, and we need to create an environment where people are free to speak their minds, even if they might hurt other people's feelings. Now, in the case of Tucker Carlson, it's an extreme example because his rhetoric has real consequences. But with that said, I also see the benefit of calling up the advertisers and letting them know, hey, did you know your ads are airing on this show? Because it appears a lot of these advertisers didn't even realize it. Now, with that said, a lot of them have pulled out, including, let's go to graphic 45, Pacific Life. That was the first company, an insurance company, to pull out. Indeed, Minted, Smile Direct Club, Nautilus Inc., also NerdWallet, Just for Men, and IHOP.
Yeah, so look, I'm gonna be over the top honest as usual. I'm biased, so you can take it with a grain of salt. I really believe what I'm saying, and I hope I'm not influenced by the wrong things, but I'm telling you ahead of time that I might be, because this is advertisers don't really care. All they care about is, I just don't want any trouble. And so, and just as I suspected, at one point in the article that, in this case from Splinter News, they said some of the advertisers suggested it wasn't a problem with this show, but with political programming in general. So they're gonna say, and they have said this in the past, oh, if you're racist or fighting against racism, I'm out either way. So I don't want to fund anything on either side. They pull a Trump and they go, they're good people on both sides, right? And they're bad people on both sides, and they pull the shoot.
So can I?
So and that, well, you know what that does? It shuts down all conversation in the country. So because you can't get any money to talk about anything related to the news.
I know, but I'm tired. Look, I'm gonna keep it real. I'm tired of advertisers being the gatekeepers of what is and is not appropriate on news shows. This is why membership, you guys, you have no idea how much it means to us, because you guys are the ones who get to hold us accountable. And I would much rather serve you than serve advertisers, period, okay? Now, if there are advertisers who want to do business with us because they believe in our message, great. But I don't want advertisers to be the gatekeepers of what content is acceptable on air, period.
And that's why we set up membership, so our financial interests are aligned with your interests. And it's tyt.com/join. We tell you about it all the time, because if we need to make sure you're happy instead of advertisers being happy, then we're gonna serve you. And so, well, look, we do that anyway. We've been doing it for 16 years, but you gotta keep yourself honest as well, okay? So anyway, put that aside. And last thing is being principled. And all the way since I was a Republican in college to now, I have always believed in the marketplace of ideas. I argued for allowing speech even if it was offensive back then. I argued for today. Because we're principled, we actually defend Ben Shapiro going to college campuses and anyone else. And here I'm saying I think the advertisers should not pull out a Tucker Carlson show. You could just say, hey, to stop watching the show. I mean, you heard what I think about it. Yeah, of course he's attacking people for being dirty and doing slogans like immigrants will not replace us. It's odious, it's despicable, but let the audience make that decision. And if it turns out there's a bunch of people in the country who are just as racist as Tucker Carlson, they are. And so that's the reality of it. We all have to work harder to address the root causes and instead of trying to put a Band-Aid on it by banning things. That's always been my opinion. Now, the other side does not do the same courtesy of actually believing the same philosophy. In a story we covered earlier today, they say, oh, if you're in favor of the BDS movement, boycott of Israel, for example, the government, that's an actual First Amendment issue, should be able to shut you down, fire you, make sure you don't get contracts. So on the left, I hope that we are way more principled than the right wing, who never believed in any of those principles in the first place. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.